Everyone. Yeah, tonight, obviously, talking about Sirhan Sirhan again. And yeah, I was just going to give you slightly more detail about the Bobby Kennedy assassination. I'm not going to go into loads of detail about what happened and the Manchurian Candidate angle on it. I was just going to delve into tonight. And it also came up. There's a really good film that is on YouTube that was made in about 2013, I think, called RFK Must Die. And I recommend watching that. And towards halfway through, we'll watch a clip from the trailer of that, because there's stuff about the woman from the in the polka dot dress who looks like his handler or whatever. Yeah, it's a strange sort of, but this thing is a rabbit hole, it's as big as the Manson case. I could do many streams about all the different angles. But it also came up that Sirhan Sirhan's was into Rosicrucianism. He was doing a correspondence course in that. And that gives me a reason to bring up a point about Sharon Tate that's really short, so it doesn't really fit anywhere else. But that to promote the eye of the devil, they did that thing of her being initiated into witchcraft. There's a picture of it, and I can debunk that that's anything, basically, when I talk about what Rosicrucianism is, because Sirhan Sirhan's supposed to have been into that, and it involves going into meditative states and trances and all this sort of thing. And they'll try to make it suggest that he hypnotized himself, that no one else hypnotized him. But that's not right. No, he won't have been able to do that. He won't have been that advanced. He couldn't have got that advanced. But I'll explain that when I talk about Rosicrucianism anyway. So yeah, hi everyone. How is everyone? It's a bank holiday weekend here in the UK as well, so we get tomorrow off work. Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, that film's really good as well. RFK Must Die. I'll make sure the link to it is in the description when you're watching this on playback, because it's worth watching. And yeah, that's mainly about like the CIA angle, the idea that there's obviously a second shooter. That's the big thing. But we'll get into it when I do the presentation, obviously. The Rosicrucian bit might get a bit weird for you then, yeah. Yeah, I'll just start it now, because there are quite a few slides in the script. So, and there's also another thing that doesn't get mentioned in RFK Must Die. So I'm going to play you a clip from the end, because it's from his YouTube channel. So I assume that it was something he would have added to it, but he got it later. But about the recording, because there's footage of Bobby Kennedy's assassination, and forensic sound analysis shows 13 shots, and Sirhan's gun only held 8. So that proves there was another gun, because he wouldn't have had time to reload. So yeah, I'll show you that at the end as well, because that's just another aspect. It's crazy. Hello everyone. They're saying good night. Are you going? Or yeah, we're arriving. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Right, I'll start. So this is just some basic summary of what happened, basically. So it's June the 5th, 1968, and the location was the Ambassador Hotel, Los Angeles, California. And it was shortly after midnight, just after leaving his California Democratic primary victory speech. And the sequence of events was, he finished his speech in the embassy ballroom around 12:10 a.m. He was led through a service area, the kitchen pantry, to avoid the crowd and head towards a press conference or exit. As he entered the pantry area, Sirhan Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian immigrant, was waiting with a .22 caliber Ivor Johnson revolver. Sirhan fired multiple times. RFK was hit 3 times, with the fatal shot entering behind his right ear at close range. Several others were injured in the chaos. Sirhan was wrestled to the ground and arrested on the scene. Basically, so yeah, as he walks away from the stage, he's led through this pantry, and Sirhan's there waiting for him and starts shooting at him as he's walking towards him, basically. This helpful diagram I found that makes it clear as mud. Basically, Sirhan's near the oblong box. That's like a waiting table tray thing, like a food counter that someone would stand behind and serve food from. One of those things. He stood by that, and JFK's at the end of the corridor. And Sirhan was always in front of RFK, sorry. Yeah, the fatal shot was behind the ear, fired at close range. Witnesses claim Sirhan's gun was never closer than 1 to 3 feet, while forensic experts say the fatal shot was within 1 inch, which is the one right behind his ear. And some believe a second gunman was involved, possibly a security guard standing behind RFK. But the official explanation as to how Sirhan managed to shoot him so close behind the ear was that his arm was extended. So even though he was 1 foot away, he managed to extend his arm far enough to get 1 inch behind his ear. So he must have had go-go gadget arms, like Kurt Cobain, basically, to be able to have shot him behind the ear. That's the official explanation as to how Sirhan managed to shoot him right behind the ear. But yeah, obviously most people believe there was another gunman. Right, and so who was Sirhan Sirhan anyway? So he was more than just the gunman. He was born in Palestine in 1944, and he witnessed violence and upheaval before emigrating to the US. Resented RFK support for Israel. He carried a newspaper clipping about Kennedy backing bomber sales to Israel. He had failed jockey aspirations. A fall during training caused a serious head injury, after which friends noted major personality changes. And he was obsessed with mysticism. He practiced Rosicrucianism, a mystical belief system involving meditative trances and altered states. He wrote repeatedly in a notebook, "RFK must die, RFK must be killed." Some researchers suggest he may have been in a trance-like state during the shooting. Yeah, and this is Rosicrucianism, what Rosicrucianism actually is, and the path of Rosicrucian initiation. Right, so to become an adept in Rosicrucianism, one must progress through 3 primary stages, each containing several degrees. Neophyte, preparation. It focuses on basic principles, harmony, meditation, and introduction to esoteric knowledge. Often corresponds to the first year or more of study. So Sirhan can only have been at that stage. He hadn't been studying it long enough to have been past neophyte. And then there's the initiate, which is the progression stage, where you're introduced to deeper philosophical concepts like mysticism and symbolic rituals. And this stage requires years of study and practice, often through written monographs and reflection. And then the final stage is to become an adept. That's mastery, and it's reserved for those who have internalized and demonstrated deep understanding. It involves advanced teachings on consciousness, the cosmos, and spiritual transformation. And it's the kind of thing that takes a lifetime to achieve, and it's more about spiritual enlightenment than actually practicing magic or anything like that, basically. But yeah, this is what Sirhan was supposed to have been studying, but he can't have got very far. He can't have got far enough to have been hypnotizing himself that thoroughly and everything. And this leads into this initiation photo of Sharon Tate. In promotional material for the 1966 film Eye of the Devil, actress Sharon Tate was photographed participating in what appeared to be an Alexandrian witchcraft initiation, a modern form of witchcraft founded in the UK by Alexanders in the 1960s. This photo is often misidentified as a Rosicrucian ritual, leading to conspiracy theories that Sharon was involved in secret societies or Hollywood occult cults. There's even a theory her death was a hit because she wanted to get out of the Hollywood cult and no one is allowed to leave. So what is Alexandrian witchcraft? A modern tradition of Wicca, rooted in ceremonial magic, pagan ritual, and esoteric symbolism. Shares similarities with Rosicrucianism, the use of spiritual tools and circle casting and progressive degrees of initiation, emphasis on spiritual development, mystical experience, and symbolic acts. Both traditions borrow heavily from Western occultism and mystery school frameworks. And so what the photo doesn't show is there's no evidence Sharon Tate continued with Alexandrian witchcraft beyond the photo shoot. The ritual was likely staged as a publicity stunt to promote the film's occult themes, and claims she was a high-ranking witch or part of a Hollywood coven are unfounded from that photo alone, because that was just an initiation anyway, so she wouldn't have got, doesn't prove anything. Yeah. His failed jockey aspirations, yeah. That's around, but that's the other thing about him as well. He had a head injury too, so that makes him another prime person to set up because and he had a personality change after a head injury, so he'd be even more susceptible to getting manipulated and hypnotized. And on the night that he did it as well, he drank 4 cocktails when he doesn't normally drink. So what compelled him to do that? Like I say, yeah. He didn't kill him, he was shot at close range. Yeah, well, this is the thing. They say the official explanation is he extended his arm, and that's how come but no one believes that. Obviously, people think that someone stood closer to him, shot him. But he was undeniably firing the gun, and the gun was going off, and other people were hit as well. So Sirhan's bullets probably did hit him, but it's the fatal blow behind his ear that people question, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and this is back to the RFK stuff anyway. Yeah. Sirhan's notebook. This is the page where he's written "RFK must die" over and over again. And this is part of this is only the top of the page. There's another bit, but I've just cropped this bit to make it more readable. And this is the bit they mainly show. But yeah, people might say, "Is this what a written monograph is?" But it isn't. I'll show you what a written monograph is to say whether was this him trying to do some kind of ritual or something like that. But no, a written monograph is just like a religious pamphlet, basically. You see that? Yeah, that's like a religious pamphlet. That's what a written monograph is. So yeah, nothing to do with actual anything else. Nothing to do with this. This is just like the ramblings of a madman by those things, isn't it? Yeah. And he had bad handwriting, didn't he? It looks like a child's handwriting. Looks like my handwriting when I was a kid. Yeah, it's just babble, innit? Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, so don't let anyone try and convince you that that was some kind of ritual or anything. No. Not at all. Here we get onto the girl in the polka dot dress. Eyewitness accounts. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a woman in a white dress with dark polka dots at the Ambassador Hotel. Sandra Serrano, a campaign worker, claimed the woman exclaimed, "He shot him, we shot him," as she fled the scene. And so there's a handler hypothesis. Some researchers suggest that this woman acted as a handler or controller for Sirhan Sirhan, potentially guiding or triggering his actions through prearranged cues or psychological conditioning. And yeah, I've got a clip of the woman. There we go. Don't have to be on the screen for it to be. There you I think. This is a clip from the trailer of RFK Must Die.
And I said, "What happened?" They said, we shot him. I said, "You shot who?" And they said, "The senator."
One of the problems was that Sirhan couldn't remember the actual shooting of Robert Kennedy. So he put him under hypnosis and had him recreate the night of the assassination. To me, it was obvious that he had been programmed to kill Robert Kennedy and programmed to forget that he'd been programmed. If there had been some handlers, whether from the CIA or whoever, they had a pretty fit subject on their hands there in Sirhan Sirhan.
There are just things that boggle the mind that should be looked into, for the love of humanity. If all of this leads to where
and that's his brother, that's Sirhan's brother.
We don't want to.
Yeah, that's enough of that anyway. But yeah, so this girl in the polka dot dress just seems obviously really suspicious. But she's there. Oh, sorry, I've got a mess about. Let's get the sound up. Right. So yeah, it looks like she's some kind of handler, basically, doesn't it? And there's more witnesses than just that woman who saw her as well. There is also a short I could find to show you that gives a better summary of that woman, because she had stepped out onto outside on a fire escape. There was like a balcony when a flight of steps leading down, and she was stood on that, and she saw the woman in the polka dot dress walk in with Sirhan and another man, and then they ran out, just the one guy and her, and she said, "We shot him. We shot the senator." And yeah. And then she got aggressively interviewed by a police officer and was told she didn't see it, and to say she didn't see it as well. That's all in RFK Must Die. So yeah, definitely watch that. Can't show you too much of it in this, obviously. But yeah, that's the woman, Serrano, isn't it? Her name's on the thing. Yeah, Sandra Serrano, the witness was, yeah. And there's like the recording of the police interview where the policeman's really aggressively, I don't know if he's a CIA guy, an FBI guy, or whatever. Yeah, but he's telling her that she didn't see this person and she's got to stop saying it. But there were other people that saw the woman in the polka dot dress as well, not just her. And she was stood right behind him as he was shooting him, and he looked at her and she smiled at him just before he started shooting and all this sort of stuff. Very, very weird. And there's more of the recording of him under hypnosis as well, what he said when he was under hypnosis. Trying to get him to remember what he did. She never remembered. And the same guy that hypnotized him also saw Mark Chapman, the guy who killed John Lennon as well. I noticed when I was researching this. They all come up at these big cases, the same guys. Right, and this is the main theory of the RFK Must Die film anyway, the alleged CIA presence at the Ambassador Hotel. In 2006, filmmaker Shane O'Sullivan presented research suggesting that 3 senior CIA operatives, David Sanchez Morales, Gordon Campbell, and Joe Hanides, were present at the Ambassador Hotel on the night of RFK's assassination. O'Sullivan's identification was based on video and photographic evidence, however. Subsequent investigations revealed that one of the men, identified as Campbell, had died in 1962, leading to questions about the accuracy of these identifications. Motivations behind CIA involvement. Some theories post that RFK's potential presidency posed a threat to certain CIA operations, especially considering his brother JFK's contentious relationship with the agency. So yes, and then we get to the 13 shots, the Brzezinski recording. An audio recording by journalist Stanislaw Brzezinski captured the sounds during the assassination. Forensic audio expert Philip Van Praag analysed the tape and identified 13 distinct gunshot sounds, despite Sirhan's revolver holding only 8 bullets. Van Praag also noted instances where the timing between shots was too rapid for a single shooter, suggesting the presence of a second gunman. And counter-arguments are other experts have contested these findings, arguing that only 8 shots are discernible and that the additional sounds could be echoes or other noise artifacts. But they always say that. And yeah, we've got a video of this as well. Oh no, oh, no.
The only known recording of the actual gunshots.
I should warn you as well before we watch it, if you haven't seen it, it is quite harrowing. This is actually the footage of him getting shot, and you can hear everyone's despair at seeing him get shot, and a woman screaming that's probably his wife. His wife was very close to him. I watched the last speech he did just before he got shot, and his wife was stood right behind him then, so presumably his wife was close to him when he got shot. It is quite harrowing if you haven't seen it. You don't want to watch it.
Was this recording made by Mr. Brzezinski, and which is somewhat ironic in that Brzezinski was not aware at the time he made the recording that he in fact was still recording. He had set up his microphone and his cassette recorder up at the podium area, had recorded Kennedy's victory statement, and after that had concluded, he came back up to the podium, collecting his microphone and his recorder. And as he was descending the stairs is the point at which the shooting began. He continued to walk into the entryway to the pantry as the shots continued. This is a poor recording, and that's unfortunate. I mean, it would have been lovely.
You don't hear much at all, do you?
High quality recording made with professional.
You don't hear much at all, but he managed to forensically analyse it. And yeah, he didn't die at the scene as well. He died 2 days later. He was still talking apparently and everything. And the bullets got into the back of him. Someone asked that in the chat. I was going to say, because when he started getting shot at, he put his arms up like that and he turned around. And so that's how they say that the bullet got into the back of him, because his arms went up like that and he turned around. So that's how apparently is the official explanation.
technical equipment right on the scene and as it was happening in the kitchen pantry, but it's not. So we have to make do with what we have. Over this period of the last 3 years, what I found was basically 3 different discoveries. The first discovery was 13 shot sounds over a little bit over a 5-second interval of time. There are 2 shots and then a pause of about 1 1/3 seconds, and then a flurry of succeeding shots, then a number of screams and shouts from that pantry area. Let's just look at part of the shot sequence right up to the scream. The second discovery was that within those 13 shot sounds, there are 2 instances of what I call double shots. And those are 2 shots that occur so close together as to make it really very difficult to believe how they could have possibly come from a single gun. And in fact, last year, when the Discovery Times channel hired a gun expert in California, rented an Iver Johnson Cadet 55, which was the weapon that Sirhan had used, and had him under ideal conditions try to shoot it as fast as he could. And I guess the fastest 8-shot average was something like 366 milliseconds between shots. One of the double shots that I found was about 120, 122 milliseconds apart. The other was about 147, 148 milliseconds.
This is the double shots there are showing that there was obviously another gunman. And yeah, just with the sheer amount of shots, like you say, shows there must have been another gun because he can't have had that many shots. And I can't see how it echoes as well, because there's actually tons of people. When you look at the diagrams, there was actually about 70 people in that pantry. And I'm sure that would mask echoes, the sounds absorbed by people. And also it was like, was it high enough, the ceiling high enough in that room for there to be a significant echo? It's like a little corridor place. It's like, yeah. I don't believe that echoes can explain that. So my cat's knocking the camera now. Carry on watching.
Apart. So about 3 times faster than a gun expert, firing expert, was able to achieve under ideal conditions. And we must remember that at the time that the double shots occurred, Sirhan's gun wrist had been pinned down onto the steam table. If we consider the possibility of 2 guns being fired by 2 different individuals, then we could say that over that same period of time, we would have a random distribution in terms of the occurrence of the shots from those 2 guns, and the likelihood that we would have a couple of virtually overlapping shots occurring from those 2 guns. And that's in fact what we see in these 2 double shot occurrences. As we analyzed further and further, we found a similarity pretty much across the board amongst all of those shot sounds. However, we found one anomaly with 5 of the gunshots. One frequency presented at a higher level at 1600 hertz at one particular frequency. At a total loss for what that possibly could be coming from, we did an independent firing range test using 2 different guns, an Iver Johnson Cadet 55, the same that Sirhan had used. The other one was an H&R 922, the security guard, who was positioned immediately behind Kennedy. In fact, had Kennedy's right elbow with his left hand at the time, and was carrying a gun that evening, happened to own an H&R 922 at the time of the shooting. That particular model gun has the same rifling characteristics as the Iver Johnson Cadet 55. The security guard sold that particular weapon a few months after the shooting and not prior to the shooting, as he had initially indicated to the police. So anyway, that seemed to be a good second gun to be using for this independent firing range test. The results of that test showed this same frequency anomaly that we had found in the Brzezinski recording. With the H&R 922 as measured from behind, we found the same frequency anomaly. In other words, this abnormally high level at 1600 hertz. We did not notice any resonance characteristics within the frequency bands with the Iver Johnson. This provided very, very strong evidence then that the source of the second gun was in fact an H&R 922, and that was fired in that kitchen pantry at the same time that Sirhan's Ivor Johnson Cadet 55 was fired. They were able to find 10 shot sounds, and one of the double shots, the more prominent of the two double shot occurrences. Had they had more time, I have no doubt that they would have found the others. But what's most important there, rather than to any quibbling that may go on in terms of, well, is it really 10 shots or 12 shots or 14 shots or whatever, the primary point that people need to recall is that the capacity of Sirhan's gun was 8 shots. He did not have time to reload. And so anything more than 8 shots proves there had to be a second gun firing within that kitchen pantry, period. My instrumentation, as good as it is, doesn't spew out a name, okay? So all I have is my scientific findings. All I can say is there absolutely had to have been more than one gun involved. Sirhan could not have shot Robert Kennedy. It certainly could not have fired the fatal bullet. And we have 12 witnesses, basically, that put him 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 feet from Kennedy. So what does that mean? It means that Sirhan was convicted for a crime which he did not commit. So it is the responsibility of the judicial system, the criminal justice system, to rectify that error.
There you go. So basically, yeah. Unless he had go-go gadget arms, he can't have done it, can he? Basically, yeah. And that guy, well, I was saying, yeah, this, if anything more than 8 proves that there was another gun. He says he found 13, other people found 10, 11 shots. And yeah, no, so what people were saying in the chat, obviously, yeah. The security guard who was stood right next to him is the main culprit. But the reason, how they explain Sirhan shooting him in the back is that when he was first getting shot, he turned around, and that's how the bullet went in. And he extended his arm, and that's how he got within 1 inch. But no, doesn't sound very likely, does it? No. But he was firing bullets though, yeah, and loads of other people were hit as well. I don't think anyone else died, but the other people were hit, and he was firing bullets. And some of his bullets must have hit Kennedy, wasn't they? Yeah. So you can't say he's innocent, but yeah, he probably didn't fire the one that was behind his ear. You see what people mean? Yeah, yeah, I think that. Well, he doesn't know, does he? And was he hypnotized? I think he was probably drugged. They say something about he had 4 cocktails when he doesn't normally drink. And he goes over and meets because in the RFK Must Die, you hear more of what he says when he's under hypnosis. And he goes over to get some coffee. There's like a free coffee machine or a table with coffee. And he goes over to get coffee. And that's where he meets the woman with the polka dot guns. So did she drug his coffee, or was the cocktails he drank drugged or something? Yeah. Seems very suspicious. And it all just seems too good as well. There's just too much. It's all laid out so well. It looks like, you know, it's a cover for something else, for the real motive for for killing, you know, RFK, which is just the CIA didn't like him, did they? Basically, or whatever. Yeah. But yes, I find it crazy that there wasn't more security around him as well. If you watch the last speech he gave him, there's people all around him, really close to him all the time. There's no like barriers and people being kept away from him. There's photographers all around him. As he's making the speech, a photographer suddenly pops up behind him and he looks around as if to say, what the fuck, you know what I mean? There's like hundreds of people on the stage with him. And this was not long after Martin Luther King was assassinated as well, I think. So you'd think that he would have had more security around him. He does look like a sitting duck, you know. It's like someone wanted him to get shot, obviously, yeah. Terrible. There were no gunpowder bands on RFK's neck. Noguchi was not allowed to testify. He was shot at close range. Yeah. That's it. And he had an unarmed bodyguard. And another weird thing that comes up in RFK, his only bodyguard who was unarmed wasn't told that there was going to be a change. He was supposed to go to another room, but there was a last-minute change. He was going to be taken through the pantry. So his actual bodyguard wasn't with him. He didn't know about the change. He was following him to try and say, hey, you're going the wrong way. And this is all in that RFK Must Die. They interviewed this dude, his actual bodyguard. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you don't hear Johnny West anywhere. But like I say, it's crazy when you're researching these things. When I was looking at the hypnotist who put Sirhan under hypnosis, that recording, it's the same guy that hypnotized, the guy who shot John Lennon. As well, to check if he'd been hypnotized, I think, yeah. And yeah, I've heard a tape of him under hypnosis as well. Yeah, if you watch documentaries about him, there is a tape of him under hypnosis, I think, yeah. Probably from the same guy. Oh, and there's an explanation for what the hell they're doing in that picture. Let's go and find the side of that. The picture of Noguchi and the firearms expert. I now know. Sorry, is it these slides? Sorry, the cat keeps hitting the mark. I hope it's not picking that up. No, it's not these slides. But those are rods. The rods are showing the path of bullets. People that have looked at a lot of ballistic cases might not have worked that out. But you know, the coroner's behind him, Noguchi's behind him, and he's going up like that. That's JFK's jacket. And they're passing that rod through the bullet hole to show the path the bullet was taken. That's what's going on in that picture. So I wonder what the hell was going on, why he was standing in that position. I can't show you the picture. I can't find the picture now. I should have put it on these slides. Yeah. Well, he was suspended after RFK and didn't come back until CIA Drive, because that was like a year later, wasn't it? That was quite a long time. But I don't know about that. I should look into it. I know in the end he was struck off, but that's like way into the 80s. That's explainable by, he just didn't keep up with the qualifications and that, because you have to constantly retrain when you're in any sort of medical field, don't you? And the older ones don't, and so they end up getting out of touch with the latest techniques and that, and miss stuff and all this. We've only been going 36 minutes. Some people going a bit longer. But yeah, like I say, you could go into so much detail. And another crazy thing that I found when I was researching this, I didn't have time to include, but Trump has just released a ton of documents, thousands of documents about this. And one of the crazy things they're writing about is apparently there were American tourists who had been on holiday in Israel just before Bobby Kennedy's assassination, and they were saying their tour guides were telling them that he had already been shot before he'd been shot, basically. So like, how the hell did these tour guides in Israel think that Bobby Kennedy had been shot before he was shot? That's another crazy thing, isn't it? Yeah. But like I say, yeah, there's been a load more documents. So yeah, I may come back to this and go into more detail about the forensic evidence and that. But I just wanted to show you the girl in the polka dot dress and that for tonight. As we were looking at the Manchurian Candidate argument, weren't we? And Rosicrucianism, that's interesting as well. And yeah, and it gave me a chance to show you that picture of Sharon Tate. So doesn't mean what people say it means, no, at all. It was really just a publicity stunt anyway. And even if she was actually initiated into Alexandrian witchcraft, that's not all you do. You have to carry on. And there's no evidence that she did, basically. And even if she did, that isn't like a satanic cult. Anyway, that's Wicca, modern Wicca. It's like very, very peaceful, quiet, nature worshipping religion, basically. Yeah, not a satanic, weird religion. And Rosicrucianism has a bad rep, really. It's just, it goes back further and it's connected to the Kabbalah and that, but that's not a weird cult either, really. It's just a path to spiritual enlightenment, like Buddhism or whatever. Yeah, they probably all redacted. I haven't actually looked at any of them, but I've just seen, loads and loads. Apparently, he's just released about all this. It's really all just stuff that means nothing and wasn't important. That's why it hasn't been released or whatever. Yeah. And isn't the guy that's the health dude in America at the moment RFK's son? Am I right in thinking that's who he is? Because I didn't realize he had 10 kids until I watched that film as well. But he had 10 kids apparently, and that's his son, isn't it? That's RFK's son. who's yeah, the health, whatever the hell you call them, with the health secretary, is he, or whatever? God help you. He seems a bit odd, doesn't he? But yeah, I don't know how you guys will feel about him. But yeah. Yeah, any religion that isn't a weird cult, yeah. And so Rosicrucianism isn't that different to Catholicism and things like that, you know. But yeah, it's like a system of, but it's not something that you just blow through in a couple of months. There's, you know, it takes years and years of working and progressing through different stages of meditation and all this sort of thing. There's no way he was hypnotizing himself that well. And no evidence he was in any sort of group. It was some kind of correspondence course he was doing. His brother talks about it in the film. Yeah, just looking at all the footage of it as well, I just couldn't believe how many people were around him. He was just walking right through crowds of people. The crowds weren't being held back behind any barriers or anything. It's like, what? I can't believe the security was so bad. They didn't want him to, yeah. Yeah, that's it, Christian Cabala, yeah, it's sort of that sort of thing. Yeah. And it's the Rosy Cross, the Church of the Rosy Cross. It's a Christian cross with a rose in it. In the middle of it is the symbol for them as well. Yeah, so it is more associated with Christianity. Alexandrian witchcraft is Wicca. So yeah, not a sign she was in any kind of satanic or evil thing either, you know. And she still would have had to have done more to have progressed than she actually did. she obviously didn't. She wasn't that into it. It was just a publicity stunt for the film. Yeah. Oh, what, you bought a herbal supplement from Alex Jones? Yeah. One of his affiliate links. Does it, yeah, cleanse heavy metals from your body or something like that? Yeah. What, you went you went to school with Rosie Cross, did you as well? Yeah. Yeah. It's too beautiful to be free, you say. Yeah, so it's another like a paradox with his parole. It's not fair because they say they won't release him because he doesn't show remorse or he doesn't have insight into why he did it. But how can he if he doesn't remember it? And it does seem pretty clear that he's not faking it. I think he honestly was drugged or hypnotized. Whether he was hypnotized way in advance and like some kind of Manchurian Candidate is another question. I think it's more likely he was drugged and put into a suggestive state, and then that woman's walked up to him and pushed him to do something. You know? But like I say, that was just the trailer teasing you. There's more of what he says. But he says she led me into a dark place, and he starts saying, "Oh yeah, swearing about RFK and all that." Hmm. Yeah, no, I've heard John Todd, because John Todd is the original source of her death was a hit from Canada because she wanted out of the Hollywood cult, and Mary Terry, I think, has repeated that claim, haven't they? Yeah. But yeah, that's the spooky thing about John Todd. He says a hit from Canada, which suggests he had heard something about the Canadians and the Doyle incident or whatever, doesn't it? And he was really actually connected. He did know David Crosby, apparently. David Crosby confirmed that he knew him. So yeah, you know, who knows? But no, I don't think that she, you know, I'm just saying that picture is not evidence that she was a high-ranking witch or anything like that. That's just evidence that there was a publicity stunt for a film. And that was only Wicca that she was being initiated into as well. It's a very, very light thing. Yeah, Marilyn Monroe. Not tonight. But I do want to talk about Marilyn Monroe. Because that's crazy as well. When people remodeled her house in the 70s, they found the whole place was bugged. It was built with the wires already built in, bugged with the same stuff they'd intelligence services would have been using at the time. Crazy, yeah. And they say there that was over Bobby Kennedy as well, wasn't it? Is what the conspiracy theory is. So I've read it can be debunked that he was actually there, because I've heard the conspiracy theory that he was there and he went around her house and tried to talk to her, but she wouldn't talk to him, or couldn't be reasoned with, so they had to kill her. But apparently it can be debunked that he was there. He was in a completely different part of the country. Yeah. He says the money for Sharon's murder was sent from Canada and then to New Orleans. But John said I ain't a reliable source though. You know what I mean? He's a very, very crazy person. I did a whole stream about him. And he was, actually dismissed from the army for being too crazy, which is really, really difficult for the American army. You know, notoriously difficult to get out of on insanity, you know. In MASH, Kringer's trying to get out on insanity, isn't he? And they won't let him go. And they're famous for just sending you to a hospital and getting you better and making you go back instead of letting you go. So if the military chucked him out because he was too crazy, he must have been crazy, basically. Yeah, Maori Terrier's been exposed as a fraud, hasn't he? Totally, yeah. So yeah, there's no truth to any of it. Yeah, well, that's what they say. Yeah, and she was going to ring them, wasn't she? And just call the press to her house, and because it sounds like JFK had told her about the Roswell incident. She was going to start talking about the aliens they'd found at Roswell or something like that. If Bobby didn't come and talk to her, but it can be shown he can't have done. It can't have been him that was actually there. He wasn't in the area. He was in another part of the country. Okay. Sorry, I hope the mic isn't picking up this every time he fucking moves around. Hmm. Hmm. No, he wasn't honorably discharged. You can find his army records, honestly. They can watch the stream I did about him. He wasn't honorably discharged. What he said as well is not what happened as well. He says in his speeches, telling you what is supposed to have happened, but no, that isn't true. Yeah, they admitted to aliens at Roswell before attraction. Yeah. And there was supposed to be a tape of her being killed as well. And since there is evidence that the house was bugged, it is possible that there was. And yeah, you can apparently hear them injecting stuff. Because that's the other thing about her death as well. There were no capsules in her stomach. If she took pills, why were all the capsules? Because you could have put the powder into a drink, but then the capsules would still be there somewhere in a bin or whatever. Yeah. So where did all the capsules go? She was injected with something, wasn't she? Because they couldn't keep her quiet anymore. Yeah. She knew too much. And there's another woman as well. When I was reading that Max Jacobson book, who took LSD with JFK, and they murdered her as well. She was murdered down by a canal towpath as well. A really horrible murder, not made to look like a suicide, just murdered. And she was possibly murdered because they were worried about what JFK had said to her while they were doing LSD. Basically, there was a book about her called Mary's Mosaic. Mary something, her name was. I'd like to cover her story because that's horrible too. And another person connected to JFK just shows how messed up JFK, how much he messed everything up. Now they had to go around and clean up after JFK. Yeah, that is one theory in it. Yeah, that they stuck him in that way. But no, I've heard that on the recording, they turn her over. You hear the doctor say "turn her over" to hide the site of injection. So that's why she was found lying on her stomach, and that's why Noguchi said no site of injection, because it was hidden by the blood pooling when they turned her over. So it was just an injection. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's the Mary woman. Very sad. And yeah, just looks like they killed her to stop her potentially spilling the beans about anything JFK had said. I might even do the Max Jacobson stream again because my channel was really small when I did that, and not enough people watched it at the time, so it just went and died. But that's a crazy story as well. So a lot of people. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true apparently. JFK was on speed the whole time. There was a doctor injecting him with speed and steroids the whole time that he was president, and it made him act erratically, basically. Yeah. And there was a time when he got psychosis in a hotel and started running up and down the corridors naked. And the Secret Service had to get a psychiatrist to inject him with Thorazine and stuff like that. It just sounds crazy and unbelievable, but no, it is true. I looked into it. This Dr. Max Jacobson existed, and he had loads of clients. And Sharon Tate was his client, was one of the people on his list. And Diane Linkletter's dad, Art Linkletter. Crazy times in the 60s. Yeah, Dr. Feelgood, that's Max Jacobson, yeah. And in Valley of the Dolls, they don't mention him in the film, you have to read the book, but there's a doctor mentioned in Valley of the Dolls that is obviously Max Jacobson. I don't think she calls him Dr. Jacobson, but yeah, so giving women speed injections and calling them vitamin injections. Yeah. Well, we've been going for 50 minutes, so I'm going to end this now, and I'll do an after show in a bit. Just give me a minute, yeah. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. Anyway, I'll see you next week. Not sure what I'm going to do next week yet. Yeah, there'll definitely be a show next week.